This is the Ted Wallachin Podcast. Brought to you by Tom's Place. For the finest in men's clothing at unbeatable prices, it's Tom's Place at 190 Baldwin in the heart of Kensington Market. Tom's Place will suit you. And Halenda's, the meat people. Enjoy their award-winning products at selected Metro, Sobeys, Fortinos, and Foodland locations. Halenda's, the way sausage should taste. And now, here's Ted.
My guest this week is renowned food writer, critic, and Top Chef Canada judge who has served as food editor, chief restaurant critic, and dining columnist at Toronto Life magazine, and is the former national food critic for Globe and Mail. His work has also been featured in Esquire, the Wall Street Journal, and New York Magazine. He joins me today to talk about these accomplishments and his role as judge in season 10 of Top Chef Canada, which premieres Monday, September 26th, 10 p.m. on Food Network Canada. Chris Nuttall-Smith. Chris, I'm familiar with your work as a writer. I didn't realize you were in radio at one point as well.
I did a podcast a while back, and my first paid media job, apart from the usual magazine freelancing back when I was in university in BC, was at CBC Radio in Vancouver. So it was my first love. I still have a real soft spot for radio and for sound and for stories told that way. And a great radio interview, I think, beats almost anything.
Yeah. Well, many of us in radio have soft spots and on our skulls normally. How did the passion for food come about? Do you come from a food-like family? I don't want to use that word foodie because I don't know what that means. But you have,
I don't either. I'm still trying to figure it out after years.
Yeah.
I loved eating as a kid. I don't think that's a rare quality. But I didn't get to eat a huge amount of great food as a kid, and I was always annoyed at that. My parents would cook beautiful food for friends, for dinner guests, for parties they were going to, and we'd just kind of eat whatever was around. It wasn't bad food by any stretch, but it wasn't exciting. And I kind of, I'd look over the fence, so to speak, and I'd see, oh, what's that? What's that? What's that? And we wouldn't try it. So I soon taught myself to cook. I started figuring it out, back when there were home economics classes. I remember taking that and learning to make a muffin and going from there. And I had an uncle who lived in Montreal, and he was, a single bachelor. He worked for the train company. He was always traveling. And, he told me at some point, cooking is a really, really good, he did not use these exact words, but he said, cooking's a really, really good way to impress a date. Really, he used a far more vulgar way of putting it, but it left an impression on me. And I kept cooking. And so I became a journalist. I was a real journalist, as I like to say. So I was writing about politics, international. I was in Afghanistan after 9/11 and so on. But I always cooked. I always thought I would go into food. And the food editor's job at Toronto Life came open, and I took it, and I haven't looked back.
And do you regret not becoming a chef and like some of your colleagues, so some of the other judges on Top Chef?
Not even remotely.
No.
It is a tough job. I have a huge amount of respect for what chefs do, not just their day-to-day of cooking, not just their ability to be in a kitchen, but what being a chef does to your life. It's not a profession, it's not a craft, it's not a calling, whatever you want to name it, that lends itself to family balance, to security in any way. And I think that's something that's starting to change. I hope that's something that's starting to change, but it's incredibly tough as a career. And you also have people like me coming around and saying, oh, that's not very good, which a lot of other professions don't get it in such a vocal and public way. So it's a tough career. I did work in restaurants as a kid, mostly on the service side as a busboy, but I worked as a dishwasher, and I was a brunch cook out in BC briefly. I wasn't bad at it, but I think I liked being out in the front as well. And at that time, especially, you made way more money if you were a server than if you were in the kitchen.
Let's talk about Top Chef. This is season number 10. How many seasons for you?
This is my 5th season, I believe.
Hmm.
Time flies.
Yeah. And I was just looking at the prize money is I don't know, you're a little younger than I, but I remember back in the 60s, game shows and shows where people participated for prizes, and the prize would be like a case of Molson Golden and a weekend in Guelph or something, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
But I mean, to look at the prize for this year, the winner of Top Chef Canada this year will receive $100,000 cash prize from Royal Tiger Towel, a Lexus NX car. Wow. A brand new kitchen outfitted by KitchenAid, a farm to table experience from Glad, and $10,000 from DoorDash. Those are some serious, serious prizes there.
It's huge cash. It's
Yeah.
huge money. I mean, that car is a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
And in addition to it, there's the non-monetary prizes. People get so excited about this. I hate
Mm-hmm.
using the word exposure because I think sometimes it's misused, but in this case, it is huge. People want to taste what these chefs can do. That's massive. And let's not forget too, it's not just the top winner of Top Chef who, goes home with cash. There are prizes many, if not most weeks, cash prizes.
Right.
You can win $5,000 or a trip to taste wine. The prizes that I've witnessed, in the course of a week, almost as routine, are prizes that would make the year of many people. So to
Yeah.
come out well in this competition is massive.
And people should realize that these people who are competing, the contestants, the 10 contestants who are competing are professional chefs, and many of whom have very distinguished backgrounds, and they've accomplished worked at Michelin rated restaurants, and terrific accomplishments in all winners in their own right. And this year, for the first time, there's somebody from the Yukon territories.
That's you've raised 2 points that I think are so key to why Canadians love Top Chef Canada as much as they do, and why the people involved in the competition, including me, are so happy to be a part of it. You were talking about that geographic representation. We have people from across Canada. It doesn't mean every year we have someone from every single region, but over the years, we've had people from all over this country. And it's so exciting to see what they bring, what's different, how they talk about food, how they talk about ingredients, what they do with them, the traditions that they bring in. And so
Hmm.
we have that regional, representation, but we also have you know for a long time, even when I started writing about food, and I would say until 5-10 years ago, that that the kind of mainstream standard of what a good chef was someone who was French or Italian trained and cooked a certain kind of food in a certain kind
Hmm.
of way. That has begun to change, not just in Canada, not just on Top Chef Canada, but around the world. So there's been a huge focus on the competition to bring in, for example, Indigenous cooks and
Yeah.
chefs and flavors, to bring in Caribbean Canadian cooks and chefs and flavors, to bring in foods and experiences from elsewhere. And I think that's such a big part of the magic of Top Chef is it shows Canadians what's good out there. It doesn't just have to be one kind of thing. And I think it also
Sure.
helps to I don't know what the word is. It helps to encourage, I think, a lot of chefs who typically haven't fit into that mold of your classic French trained chef in the starched
Hmm.
white shirt. So that's really part of the joy of what
Well,
the show
one
does.
one example, Chris, a young woman named Tanya Brandt, who is
Mm,
uh, at the age of 12, she started working at a local diner in Six Nations of Grand River Territory in Ontario. Eventually, she studies at Mohawk College's Aboriginal Small Business Management program, and she's now a chef and owner of a restaurant that provides fusion foods. So the combinations of people taking their traditional foods, and fusing them with contemporary foods and foods from other nations can bring about some really exciting meals.
absolutely fascinating. Tanya is a force of nature as a chef, as an advocate for these traditional ways of cooking and traditional ingredients. But she's also got a foot in really in the present, in what people are doing everywhere. So she is just such a fascinating chef. Her food is so exciting to see what she's doing is so exciting to see, and where she comes from. I mean, I think it's her grandmother is a seed saver there with the Six Nations. The line of tradition that Tanya is a part of is so important, and it's so
Hmm.
exciting to show that to people, show that to Canadians.
I know that one of the contestants, Chris Irving, he cooked for Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth.
And is it Posh Spice and David Beckham?
Yes,
I believe he was their
I get my
personal chef.
spices mixed up. I can't
I get my
remember
spices mixed up too.
which one she is.
That'll happen. Yeah, I mean the caliber of chefs coming onto this competition is so impressive. You know, there was another chef this season from Mauritius, who is so talented, runs a hugely successful restaurant. And, you know, in Mauritius, she cooked at the most important place. And these are all people who want to be on Top Chef Canada. The producers of the show do such hard work scouring the country trying to
Hmm.
find the best people for the competition, people who combine a really unique perspective with rock solid skills, you know, and just amazing personalities, stories that people are going to want to hear, stories that need to be shared, and so there's this vitality to the casting, if we call it that. We just get a level of chefs that's unparalleled.
Do you have a chance to talk to these chefs during the course of the taping of the programs and ask them what they did during the course of the pandemic, how they pivoted to keep their restaurants alive, and what they did on a personal level?
It's tough with the competition. There's the judges in particular always try to and need to maintain some distance
Hmm.
from the chefs. We're there giving real time feedback, and the rule for the judges on Top Chef, and it is a rule I can't emphasize enough, we take incredibly seriously, is the last thing you did is what we're judging you on. And that last thing is what's on the plate. So we don't generally see them cook. We don't generally talk to them when we're not on camera.
Hmm.
The first season I did it 5 years ago was even more strict. If we would walk by a hallway and there was a chef in the hall, there would be a producer who would hold up their hands and say, "No, you know, no looking, no talking, no greetings whatsoever." It's looser than that now because I think
Yeah.
you know the producers and the people who make the show have realized we're all professionals. We're not, you know, we're not going to fall in love with one of the chefs and
Hmm.
make them win. That doesn't happen. So in terms of what they've been doing, we don't necessarily hear those stories directly, but you know, we hear their bios beforehand. We see videos of them, so we try to learn, you know, what they've been through. Um, some of them have managed to go through the pandemic not badly, and others, yeah, it's been a massive struggle. This industry has taken such an enormous hit. The staff, the, the mental health of kitchen workers, service staff, bar workers
Yeah.
is an ongoing crisis. Frankly, you know, we're seeing real tragedies out there, you know, brought about by this pandemic, and
Yeah.
so people have been through a lot. It definitely raises the stakes for this competition, and you know, we could feel that this season and also last season, people really need this. And whether they win or not, I think the experience for a lot of them is almost a balm. The experience to be around these other chefs in this intense environment, traveling and learning, I think it's massive for them, and I think viewers see that.
Ted Wallishin returns in a moment.
Have you been tasked with the role of a state executor or expected maybe in the future you will be? Well, if so, let me make your life a lot simpler by introducing you to my friend Debbie Stanley. Debbie is the founder of ETP Canada. They specialize in estate administration. Their goal simply is to help Canadian executors understand their role and how to deal with the loved one's estate. Let's face it, there's no school for this, but ETP Canada offers services such as executor support, estate accounting, and they have a new online course called Executor Ready. It's an engaging video designed to make estate administration easier and affordable. And those are two comforting thoughts during a stressful time. So call Debbie Stanley at 1-866 309-0387. That's 1-866-309-0387. Or you can get her at info@etpcanada.ca. That's info@etpcanada.ca. Well, fall's coming, the kids are back in school, and many of us are easing back into the office at least some of the time. But it is time to get back to work. Time to ditch the sweatpants, t-shirts, and put on some real work clothes. Dress for success. And we've got you covered from business casual to sports jackets to suits. Virtually everything to look your professional best. The Tom's Place Back to Work sale features new fall fashion arrivals like 100% wool suits starting at just $199 each. Sports jackets at 50% off. A crazy selection of sports and dress shirts for $66 each. And lips and dress shirts regularly $145, now only $66. Everything is on sale. Tom's Place is open daily, 11 to 6 weekdays, 10 to 5 Saturday, and 12 to 5 Sunday. Visit Tom's Place, 190 Baldwin in Kensington Market. Tom's Place will suit you.
Now back to Ted Wallachin.
Chris Nuttall-Smith is with us. He is one of the 5 judges on Top Chef Canada Season 10, which premieres, by the way, on Monday, September 26, 10 p.m., Food Network Canada. This pandemic has brought about a whole bunch of different changes in a whole bunch of different ways. Something that we've seen over the last, say, 10, 20 years is a massive influx of students in culinary institutions. Schools, George Brown College here in Toronto, have just literally exploded because of the passion that people have for food. And that much of that comes about from programs such as Top Chef and from places such as Food Network Canada. Now the pandemic hits and suddenly restaurants start closing down. They close down for a couple months, they open up again. They close down, they open up, they close down, they open up. It's breeding this serious lack of, this massive insecurity, I should say, to the point where people who are restaurateurs, you talk to them and say, I can't find staff to work in my restaurant because people don't want to take a job that could be pulled from underneath them at any given minute.
Yep. It's brutal. I mean, we've been hearing that from all sides since the beginning. I was writing about the pandemic in the Globe and Mail, right at the outset, and talking to restaurateurs who, God, it seems like ancient history now, but restaurateurs who were getting bills for their rent, a month in, and they hadn't had customers in 3 weeks, and they've been forced to shut down. The big issue that you hear from restaurateurs now and from chefs running kitchens is they can't get staff. It is it's a really good environment if you're a young cook right now, because you can choose where you want to work. You're going to make a good wage. Same with servers. I heard from someone high up that a starting tipped sommelier, so that's someone who sells, stocks wine, builds a wine list at a good restaurant in Toronto. The starting salary now is $80,000 plus tips. Wow. Now there's schooling involved in that. It is not an easy job, and as you said, there's not stability there necessarily. So many sommeliers end up burning out or leaving to go into private wine sales because it's a really, really, really tough way to live your life. So even though there are opportunities there, even though there's a shortage there, it's still an incredibly difficult industry. And that's something that the restaurant industry is starting to contend with. We're seeing, I find as a diner, it's a lot more expensive to go out. It's, it used to be on a Thursday night, you could say, let's go out, drop up a hat. It wouldn't be cheap, but you wouldn't feel notably poorer at the end of it. It's become, in my household, outside of, eating I do for work, it's become more of an occasion.
But people also feel as though they need to tip more now because they realize that the person serving them may have been unemployed for half a year.
Absolutely. I went from habitually tipping 20% to now, and I get a pit in my stomach every time I do it, but it feels like the right thing to do. Everybody's got to make their own choice. I now tip 25%, unless the service is really, really, really not good, and there's unless the experience is awful. I'm tipping 25%. I know a lot of people are doing that. That adds a hell of a lot to a restaurant bill when the food prices are already higher.
Exactly.
The drink prices are already higher. Yeah. But I think so far, at least in good places, what I'm finding is diners are willing to pay that, to see it as more of an occasion, to treat eating out in a good place as the treat it is, and it really shows the value, the importance of these places where we gather, where we eat, where we see our friends and lose ourselves and experience things that we can't do at home. It shows the value of restaurants and what these chefs on Top Chef Canada do.
What are some of the more unique experiences that we're going to witness this year on the program?
There's a lot I can't tell you about.
Well, what can
Right?
you leak a little?
What can I leak? Uh, there will be some very exotic cooking. I can tell you that. I wish I could tell you more. I think every single year the producers are looking for challenges that are going to surprise viewers and surprise the chefs and
Hmm.
teach us a little bit and delight us and make us hungry. And I think they have done that this season in spades. I think it's an incredibly, for reasons I can't tell you, you just have to watch Monday
Yeah.
nights. For reasons I can't tell you, it's an incredibly exciting season for the chefs. And there are some twists that are really pretty fantastic. It's the best season I've been involved with by a long shot. The quality of the cooking is just out of control. It's a really cool season.
In the 5 years that you've been involved with Top Chef Canada, have you witnessed any little tricks or any recipes that any of the chefs have presented that you thought to yourself, I got to take this home and I got to do this at
Oh
home?
my God, all the time, all the
Oh
time.
yeah.
Just ways chefs are, whether it's a way of grilling or a combination of flavors that just absolutely blows your mind, which happens a lot. Ways of
Yeah.
handling seafood we've had from competitors who are from the East Coast that I just look at it. I didn't know this was possible. I didn't know that seafood could possibly be this delicious. The chefs are surprising us all the time. And every season, the chefs bring in a few prepared ingredients of their own, things that they put so much love into, whether it's foraged, whether it's a sauce or a spice mix or something that their grandmother taught them to do. And some of these you just taste. And look, I eat around the world. I've been doing this for going on 20 years. I've eaten in a lot of good places. I get to eat the food of some of the planet's best chefs, and I still, on Top Chef Canada, will eat a dish with some regularity. I just think I've never had anything like this before. I've never seen someone treat this cuisine that maybe a lot of people have been writing off until now with such respect and making it so delicious. I'm constantly surprised, and that's one of the exciting things. If it's surprising us judges,
Yeah.
I think viewers at home, it's such an opportunity just for viewers to just lose themselves in food. There's such a voyeuristic quality to the way the competition is shot and the chefs who are cast. I think I learned so much being there and watching it. I just think it's so exciting for viewers to see at home
Of
as
all
well.
the chefs that you've witnessed in the 5 years that you've been a judge on Top Chef, have you gone back to any of their restaurants? Have you gone to any of their restaurants after sampling their
No,
food?
often, often,
Yeah. Oh
often.
yeah.
When I'm traveling, I'll pop in and
But just as a customer, not as a reviewer.
absolutely, absolutely. I do eat as a civilian as well. And even though we don't, we're not having smokes with them in the hallway. During the show, we really learn to love a lot of these chefs and learn to appreciate them. And look, the constraints around the competitions on Top
Hmm.
Chef are real, and it's really exciting to see these chefs in their natural environments when they don't have that clock running in the same way, when they can,
Right.
when they've had weeks to work on a dish. So I absolutely love it. These are some of the best chefs in Canada, and they bring real expertise and originality and excitement. It's worth going and seeing what they do.
My daughter, who was a huge fan of Top Chef, she said, "Would you do me a favor and would you ask Chris to give you a list of some of his favorite restaurants that he's reviewed? Can you give me two or three?"
Favorite restaurants I've reviewed. Well, I'll tell you about a place I went yesterday that
Hmm.
I've been, I think, 5 times now. I reviewed it when it first opened and fell in love with it. And every time I go, it's 40% better. This doesn't happen in restaurants. I know I'm delaying the reveal here, but it's because I'm so excited about it. It's the restaurant at Pearl Morissette Winery. in Lincoln, Ontario. It is two of the best chefs anywhere, not just in Canada, two of the best chefs anywhere. And Eric Robertson and Daniel Hadida and the kitchen crew they've managed to attract and encourage and retain is amazing. The service is absolutely perfect. And you're sitting in a gigantic tent with farm all around you. It's a working farm. There's ducks, there's cows, there's a gigantic herb garden and greenhouses. It's the most beautiful setting. The food is truly extraordinary and unlike food you'll get most other places. And the service is wonderful. For me, it's one of the greatest kind of high end experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And so much though of eating in Canada to me is just about simple food, just about something that maybe costs $3. I just had doubles, Trinidadian doubles for lunch that I got next to the No Frills at Lansdowne and at Lansdowne and Dufferin, and it's spectacular. And it was $6.99, and it's chickpeas with this gorgeous tamarind sauce and a fried Trinidadian double, which is a kind of bread if you haven't had it, and some chopped cabbage, and it's just spectacular. So my tastes, and I think I can say this for all the judges on the program, and I think this is indicative of the way a lot of Canadians like to eat is, sure, we like our high-end food and fancy stuff, but there's a lot of really good eating in Canada it's kind of simple too. That doesn't cost a lot. You don't have to break the bank to have a good meal. So those are just two things from the last 24 hours that I've eaten that, both of them just made me incredibly happy.
Right. Do we get to learn a little bit about the restaurants and the establishments where the chefs on the program work?
Always to some extent. Everything has to be tightly edited. There's so much going on the competition itself, but we get to see some of the ideas and the ethos of the restaurants where these chefs come from. And they're often talking about the chefs who trained them, if they're not in charge, where they're coming from, or they'll talk about their own restaurant. It's don't forget, a lot of these chefs are leaving their restaurants to come on this competition, and if you don't win anything, you're giving up maybe 3 weeks or a month of your life to come back, and you have a great experience, but you don't have $100,000 in a new Lexus. So we hear about what they've left behind to do this, the sacrifices they make to come onto the competition. And, there's so much love as they're talking about their kitchens, their crews, the food they love. So we learn as much as we can in that context.
One of the chefs that's appearing this year on the Top Chef Canada, his name is Vish Mayakar.
Mm-hmm.
And Vish Mayakar next year is off to the Culinary Olympics as part of Team Canada.
Absolutely.
That's pretty cool.
It's fantastic. These are chefs competing at the highest level, going to Lyon, to the International Culinary Olympics. This scene, Canadians don't yet know that much about the Culinary Olympics. As a nation, we haven't necessarily supported it or paid that much attention to it. But you see other countries, the teams they send, and the unbelievable drama of that competition. So Vish is an example of one of these Canadian chefs who's cooking at an extraordinarily high level, who I think Canadian diners and are starting to pay attention to and get excited about, in no small part thanks to competitions like this one, like Top Chef.
And we got another chef who was originally from Egypt. We've got a chef with a Jamaican heritage, indigenous backgrounds as well. I mean, pretty much cover what Canada is this vast multicultural nation.
I was just going to say, this is Canada. This is Canada. I mean, if you want to walk around and eat nothing but pizza, pasta, and French food, for the rest of your life, you can do that. You'll probably eat pretty well. But I think to really enjoy what Canada has to offer, what cities and not just cities, what any part of Canada has to offer, I think you want to go and experience the food of different cultures. International food, as it's sometimes called, whatever you want to call it. We had just the most sublime Egyptian food, as you mentioned. We had some Jamaican food unlike anything I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
Indigenous ingredients and cooking that was delicious and also moving. you're eating it and you're thinking, this has been here for how long? And I haven't paid anywhere near enough attention to this.
Yeah.
It's so exciting to learn through these chefs and their food. And they represent Canada. I think as close a full picture of Canada as you can get when you have, 10 chefs in 1 month and almost $200,000 in prizes on the line.
I'm getting so hungry right now just listening.
That's the idea here, Ted. This is what I try to do.
You know what's going to kill me? I know this because I know I'll be watching this program Monday nights at 10 o'clock on Food Network Canada. It's Top Chef Canada is what we're talking about. The problem is I'm going to sit down. It's going to be 10 o'clock at night on a Monday night. And by 10:15, I'm in the fridge. And I'm making myself something to eat way too late at night. So curse you for putting it on.
You're going to be awake at 4 a.m. with the meat sweats, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I know that feeling all too well, Ted. Well, you got to plan it. You got to plan to bring in some good food right on time, and then you're set.
Yeah, true.
But I feel your pain. I've been there many times, and you are not alone, my friend.
I'm a weird guy because I love watching home handyman kind of programs. Like Property Brothers. I quite enjoy that program. I love watching all the great shows that the Food Network puts out. And I can't cook with the damn, and I couldn't build a shoebox. But I can eat and I can enjoy.
You know what you like.
That's good enough.
You know what you
exactly.
Like. Well, sure. I mean, this is one of the other things about Top Chef Canada in particular is you can come at it as a viewer as one of the greatest chefs anywhere, and they're watching, or you can come as someone who can barely make toast, and you're going to come away excited. You're going to come away hungry. You're going to come away having learned something, whether it's how to cook something or just what to order next time. These are a big deal. Well,
there's something that I learned about you, Chris, that I have to share with people.
I'm bracing myself.
No. This is fine. Apparently, you store metal parts of your meat grinder in the freezer so that the meat doesn't get mushy when you grind it.
Absolutely.
Where did you learn that?
I started. God, it must be 15 years ago. I started making burgers myself. I love a burger that isn't hard cooked, that isn't gray in the middle, that's super juicy, that's salted just the way I want it. So I started, even before there was the Burgers Priest, which everybody knows now, even before the smash burger became a household word, I started making my own burgers. And I learned early on that if you want to make a great burger, you got to grind your own meat. So I bought a meat grinder, and if your meat grinder is warm, your meat's coming out kind of sludge-like. It's not appetizing. So I keep it in the freezer. And since then, I mean, I've begun making sausages routinely. Not this time, it was last March. I had 8 friends over in my backyard, and we had a 325-pound pig hanging from the rafters in my garage. We butchered an entire pig and made sausage. So I've learned to use that meat grinder fairly well. But you got to keep it in the freezer, keep it cold, or you're going to run into issues.
And you renovated your own kitchen, I understand, right?
I did. I installed. Wow. So we're in our second house now. The first house I renovated myself. I'll never do that again. It didn't go badly, but it takes about 18 times longer than you think it should. And there I lost a lot of hair. But the second kitchen, I installed my own. And I still do work. I built my whole backyard. I like to be handy. It's a good way to use a different part of my brain. And I have to say, I think it's 12 years now since I built that kitchen. I still love it every day when I walk in. It's exactly how I want.
I want to thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us. I look forward to seeing you come Monday, September 26th. It's the premiere of season number 10 of Top Chef Canada, 10 p.m. Get your napkins ready on Food Network Canada. Chris Nuttall-Smith, thanks so much for your time, and all the best to you.
It's an absolute pleasure being here and hearing your voice after all these years, talking to me. Great to meet you, Ted. Thanks for having me on.
I hope to talk to you again.
Cheers.
The Ted Wallacham Podcast has been brought to you by Tom's Place. For the finest in men's clothing at unbeatable prices, it's Tom's Place at 190 Baldwin in the heart of Kensington Market. Tom's Place will suit you. And Helenda's, the meat people. Enjoy their award-winning products at selected Metro, Sobeys, Fortino's, and Foodland locations. Helenda's, the way sausage should taste. The Ted Wallacham Podcast is produced by Joey Roselli. Technical production by Paul Gatt. Music by Bike Thieves. I'm Becky Coles. Submit your questions and comments to ted@twmedia.ca.